Chapter 7. It was time to head back to Kisangani. This term was supposed to be 4 years before we would return to Texas for another 1 year of furlough. But we were all anxious to get back. Me to finish decorating my home, Billy to work in the ICI office, and lots of ministry work. The children would be returning to Kisangani with us, but taking a flight soon for Rethi boarding school. When we returned, we learned that our dog, Reggie, had passed away, only weeks before our return. Our guard told us that the dog missed the children so much he just would not eat, and eventually died. We were all very sad over this, but Jennifer and Jason took it very hard. My yard was beautiful when we returned, and everything had grown so much. Everyone was thrilled to see us, and you would have thought that we'd been gone 10 years. Marge and Ernie Jones, our colleagues and next-door neighbors, had left the field because of Marge's health. A new couple, Derek and Andrea, were living in the house next door and had met us at the airport when we arrived. They had a 4-month-old baby boy, and with them was a dear friend of ours, Pastor Waoli. He was an African pastor, and he was superintendent of the district of Kisangani. He was with Derek and Andrea at the airport to greet us. There was a once-a-year committee meeting for all pastors, including Billy, as he was now the field chairman for now, that was supposed to begin in 1 week. The problem with that was it was very far from our house, about 400 or 500 miles to drive. I hated the thought of Billy being gone right now, as the children would be leaving for boarding school as soon as we could book a flight. It had been raining a lot, and we heard that the roads were really bad. And so I just started praying about this, and that the Lord would have His way. Billy and Pastor Waoli made plans to leave the next Friday, but on Wednesday, the car broke down. An old repair job from last term had come undone. He put it in the shop, but it was not ready until Saturday at noon. So on Billy's way home from picking up the car, he stopped by Pastor Waoli's house to tell him they could go now, and they made plans to leave Sunday, the very next day. When he arrived home, he started looking under the car and realized the rubber boot was broken. We were not sure if another one was available or if we would have to order one. So he had to go back to Pastor Waoli's house by foot and tell him the trip was off again. If the car had not been broken, he would have went. But for some reason, I felt he shouldn't go, and I prayed about it again. The Lord's will was done, and we would know the reason why very soon. We went ahead and booked a flight for the 3rd of September for the children to return to Rethi, and I would be going with them to help them get settled, and then I would return in 1 week. We spent the next few weeks sewing name tags on all their clothes. The flight of September 3rd was canceled. So we booked a flight with MAF for a few days later, and it was canceled. We were really not supposed to listen in on the high-frequency radio that we had when we heard pilots talking, but we were becoming desperate to find a way for the children to get to boarding school. So one day, I was listening as a MAF pilot came on and was communicating with someone there in the city of Kisangani, and the MAF pilot was talking about his estimated time of arrival into Kisangani. He would be bringing in a well-known evangelist for a crusade. As soon as his conversation ended, I went on the radio. And I told him my name and that I was a missionary and that I had 2 children that I was in desperate need of getting them to Rathi. He told me that when he came to bring this evangelist, that he would take me, Jenny, and Jason on to Bunya, where we would be able to catch a flight on to Rathi, a short distance from there. That is how we finally were able to get the kids to boarding school for the beginning of the school year, September 1991. As soon as we did arrive at Rathi, I gave Jennifer and Jason's passports to a man that worked in the office of the school. He took the passports to place the new visas inside. He was supposed to return the passports to me before I left. Excuse me. But that never happened. They were not ready on the day of my departure, so I had to leave without them. He promised to return them as soon as possible. Even though the children were about 1,000 miles from us in Kisangani, we always kept their passports with us, or at least we had tried. We would learn several weeks later why it was so crucial that the children were in possession of their own passports. Meanwhile, I returned to Kisangani, and all was peaceful and everything going quite well. The evangelist, Reinhard Bonnke, had been there holding a very well-attended crusade, and Billy and I were able to attend the last night of the crusade. But our car was still broken down, so Billy was unable to travel outside the city. We found many other things to keep us both busy with the pastors in that area, and there were several churches. So Billy was busy preaching and working in town at the ICI office. Like I said, all was peaceful. And then suddenly, it all changed.